back to Mike and Maurice's Mind Escape. Let us help you escape your mind.
Folks, welcome back to Mike and Maurice's Mind Escape. We have episode number 129 today. We're going to be talking with the Dreaming Jaguars about DMT and psychedelics. You can check out their YouTube channel. I will have the link down below the video. And also check out our new website, mindescapepodcast.com. And I updated everything on there, so go check that out as well. But these guys are awesome. We had them on episode 50, which seems like it wasn't that long ago, but apparently it was 80 episodes ago. So welcome back, Paul and Justin.
Hey, mate. How you doing?
How you doing, bud?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, we're all good. All good.
So a lot's happened since you guys have been on, actually for both of us. I mean, we've both talked to some of the greats in the field. You guys have done some great videos, and you've talked with R.N. Vood and Andrew Gallimore and David Luke and all these guys. Since we've talked last, has your feelings on this subject changed in terms of what's going on in these realms? Has it been demystified? Has it added more mysticism? Where do you guys stand now?
Oh, you want to go first, Jody?
I can do, yeah. I suppose there have been some changes in my concept of what's happening when we go into the DMT realm. Generally down to the aforementioned David Luke and his research at the Greenwich University. We're not really at a point where we can discuss that.
We can kind of discuss what we had agreed with Pascal and David without giving away the actual meat and potatoes of the thing. But we can definitely talk about what we did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the lead up to meeting Dave, which was that was amusing. And then so Dave Luke is obviously a professor at Greenwich University, and he was giving a talk in Brighton, so we kind of I think was it Andrew Gallimore, Paul, who got us in contact with him?
Yeah, he sent an email to Dave Luke and told him who we were, and that we just shot the video with him, and for him to sort of give us, 5 or 10 minutes aside to introduce ourselves and him to us and so on and so forth. And it actually turned out, we got there a little bit early, didn't we, to the venue, which was with him, and we got on really, really well. And off the back of that, he invited us to do an experiment that him and Pascal Michael, who is one of his PhD undergrads, that they were doing field research into DMT and telepathy. And he asked us if we'd like to do the experiment that they had put together to find out whether or not there is any telepathy within the DMT experience, or can DMT sort of catalyze telepathy and the whys and what fors, which was amazing. It was really, really good. Justin, you want to carry on with that and elaborate what we did? And
I suppose from the first point, Dave was great when we first met him. He's very welcoming, very nice guy. And but the talk he was giving was like part history of psychedelics, I suppose, in the big grouping. But he brought up something which I never knew, which was the DMT used to be known as, was it telepathy?
Yeah, it was. So it was harmine. So when the first guys went into the Amazon, studied the tribal, the tribal groups that were partaking in the ayahuasca ceremonies, they were trying to derive what chemicals were involved in the brews and snuffs that the tribes were using. And obviously they'd isolated DMT and also harmine, and they had started using harmine. I'm not 100% sure on the facts of it, but it was some sort of ayahuasca brew that the guys that were partaking in the experiment, the Westerners that were partaking in the studies of the tribes that were doing these ayahuasca brews, were having sort of telepathic, messages about sort of going home. Someone had to go home or ring home. There was a message about home, and of course, someone's then made a call back to America or wherever they were, and something had happened. And these guys were kind of getting these messages quite frequently within these experiments. So they called this brew telepathine, which was, I think that's the fact of it, Justin. That's about right, isn't it? Something like that.
Yeah, no, I know the story. You're right. That's how it went down.
So then Dave, obviously Pascal is Dave's undergrad student. He's a really great lad as well. We've done a video with him. He's a very, very clever lad. And he's now sort of right in the fold with the big guys, Andrew Gallimore, Hancock, Dave Luke. They all speak to each other, and Rupert Sheldrake, and they pass information between themselves and so on and so forth. And they had put together an experiment based on this sort of historical story of telepathy to try and see whether or not that telepathy is present within the DMT space. And they'd done 120 studies, I think, Justin. So they'd already done this field research with 120 subjects when we met Dave, and he said, we've got 4 more to do, and we really want you two to do it. So what you need to do is we would need to have a safe space where both Justin and I could go into the DMT space together at the same time, and that he would put forward a sort of symbolic link between us, and then we would go into the DMT space, and then when we come out of the DMT space, instantly be taken into separate rooms and then interviewed and draw sketches of our visions in our visionary state. And then of course Dave and Pascal would then cross-reference that information to see whether or not there's anything that correlates between the two of us. And bizarrely there was actually something that was quite sort of shocking, really, Justin, wasn't it? It blew us both away. But obviously we can't talk about what the content of the experience, because they're still putting the paper together and then they're going to release it. But from what we've spoken to Pascal, and I've spoken to him in depth, quite frequently, and they've got some really, really sort of staggering stuff that has come out of this field research that definitely swings towards telepathy being included in this DMT state, which was really interesting.
So that brings up a good question, though. I mean, are you guys familiar with like remote viewing and everything that the U.S. government, the Stanford Research Institute, and I mean, because this sounds just like kind of like an offshoot of that, which is kind of cool. And if you can believe that that's a possibility within our normal consciousness, maybe DMT and psychedelics might enhance that or open up more of an open line, if you will.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Yeah. But it was, for me, what was more interesting for me is that I had like a preconception, because obviously just to run through the protocol, we both had to do various online questionnaires, which were, and some of it was quite personal stuff, thoughts on suicide, thoughts on death, the emotions attached to people dying close to us, and all sorts of quite emotive stuff within these questionnaires. And then a lot of it was sort of more behavioural stuff. So where do we sit in the scale of somebody who believes in parapsychology and so on and so forth? Mm-hmm. But there were 4 quite in-depth studies, weren't there, Justin? And then we had to do the last bit was like a sort of hypnosis. You kind of got put under hypnosis from this little video that they sent, where we had to sit and go through this process. And I thought, actually, at that point, this is quite serious stuff that we're sort of getting involved in here. But I had a preconception of what may come out of it. But the different, I've got quite a lot of experience with Ouija boards, and you always find the answers that come to you in these sort of sessions are totally different and blindside you from what you were expecting. And what came out of this experiment for me was exactly that. You know what I mean? I had a preconception of what may or may not happen, and something crazy did go on, but it was completely different than what I thought it was going to be, which was awesome. It was very interesting.
Yeah, it sounds fascinating. That's awesome that you guys got to participate in that. And
it's good.
Yeah, I mean, all this research that's been going on has been fascinating. They just released a paper on the DMT entities the other day. I think like 2 or 3 days ago. I've been spreading it around, which is like the largest survey they've ever done on what people associate in this realm and stuff. So, but you bring up an interesting thing too, which is like, you know, an Andrew Gallimore, who, since we've had you guys on, we've had on our podcast as well. And he, you know, his book, Alien Information Theory, you know, mapping these alien worlds and stuff like that. So, do you think that maybe that there is an actual dimensional realm that you go to, and that, or do you think it's subjective and somehow we connect the subjectivity between ourselves at some point?
You want to go for that first, Justin?
That's a nice, it's a tricky one to go into. The trouble is I'm skeptical all the time. So I try not to even think about it most of the time now. And whenever I have this discussion with Paul, he always brings me round and says the old Arkham's razor, whatever the most obvious solution is, and all that. But I suppose off the back end of the stuff we've done with Dave, I'm starting to. I don't know. I suppose I'm starting to look at things differently. I'm starting to be a lot more like there's something else out there going on. So is there another round that we're going to? This is my thought process on that. Is the realm is definitely there. Whether it's still going within or whether your brain has to create that through the drugs, I suppose it doesn't matter to me, because whatever the information you bring back from that is always good, whether you have a bad one or a good one. So is there another realm? There is, yeah. Is it another dimension? I don't know, because I don't ever see it like Paul sees it.
But then,
Paul always has this massive entity engagement, and I'm not. It doesn't always happen that way for me.
Gotcha.
No, but Justin, but what I always, and this is, you know, we're not going to get into an argument here on the podcast, obviously.
Hey.
But,
Fight.
Bring on.
But what I sort of say to you is, like, you know, when certainly the stuff that we did with Dave, it's kind of undisputable that there was some sort of link there where what you saw and what I saw, you know, it's almost like undeniable that we saw a similar thing, and not just what we saw, but when we can divulge the context of it, it wasn't just a vision that you saw and I saw. There was a whole sort of set play that played out, that wove us together in that sort of scenario.
Yes,
and that is something that was going on where you were 3 feet away from me on a bed, where we were in complete silence with 3 other people in the room in complete silence. So there is a link. There is something going on outside of the physical brain. I think, like Mike, sort of just said, do we think that this realm exists? It's difficult for me to call it a realm, because I think that when we're thinking about these things in our sort of 5 senses waking consciousness, this whole information structure that Andrew Gallimore talks about is so infinitely multi-dimensional that we can't possibly know the workings of that, and probably never will know the workings of that from this 5 senses perspective. So for me, it's like, it's not like and we had this conversation the other day, Justin, didn't we? It's not like a realm like you're here and then you go there. I think there's an infinite splicing of these dimensions and this information structure that it's very difficult to explain. But you know what I mean? It's a multi-dimensional information structure that is beyond our comprehension to even fathom, and we are lucky enough to be able to glimpse into whatever that is, at whatever level that is, when you sort of partake in these experiences. That's my thoughts on it. And I think, like I said, Justin makes a good point. I've kind of given up trying to pigeonhole what that is, because I just don't think it can be done. I think you can just, take sort of some comfort in the fact that there's more than we know.
Yeah, I guess, but my question just lied more within the idea that, is it subjective in your connect? Like, okay, so Justin just brings up the point that he's skeptical. I mean, I'm skeptical too. I think if you're looking for truth, you have to
you gotta be
skeptical, because you have to be able to discern what's real, what's not, what's possible, what's not, what's tangible. So
yeah.
I would say to this though, another part of this experiment would have been to find out too, then have people that have never talked to each other, they don't know each other's mannerisms, they don't know each other's history or anything like that. You guys have spent a lot of time together, you guys do the channel and everything, you guys are friends, so you would have to have a control where
but but to interject on that, Mike, see what came out of this experience wasn't something like, oh, what did you do last week? Oh, I went to this. It was nothing like that.
I know, but I'm saying just having that intimate knowledge of somebody else's personality, I think, could affect you if you're doing it. And I'm not saying what you guys. I'm saying it's important what you guys are doing. I'm just saying you have to. If you're looking for truth, you have to look at all options. So if you're doing an experiment, I'm sure, and I would assume that they've looked at this, that you have two complete strangers doing the same thing, as well as two people who know each other doing the same thing.
Possibly,
hang on a minute. I've got an interesting thought to put in on that, which I was thinking about earlier. So, exactly what you're saying there, Mike, is the connection between me and Paul would mean it would be easy for us to maybe come up with something together. And Paul rightly said it wasn't anything like that, which it isn't. However, I'm pretty sure I can talk about this as well. Prior to going in on that visit, that I had a symbol was put in front of me, and it wasn't put in front of me in the usual way, as where it's moving, and then it just, you either go through it or it changes into something. It literally was spinning, and then it just stopped. And it stopped to the point where even in my DMT state, I looked at it and I went, oh my God, I can actually fully focus on this thing and identify exactly what it looked like. Then, when I went into that thing with Paul, and I can't talk too much about what I saw, but I saw that same symbol in a different part of my in. And then I listened to a podcast that Pascal posted this morning.
Yeah, it was his speech at Breaking Convention in 2019, wasn't it? So
in 2019,
that was in the summer.
So they filmed him doing this podcast, and on that podcast, the first slide he put up of the first person they tested, of the picture that guy drew, was exactly the symbol that I had seen when I went in with Pascal in the room and the time before. So if you're talking about telepathy between me and Paul, that's one thing. But what there's in my head, I've gone with it like, well, maybe Pascal was putting that video, or no, he wouldn't have been putting it together, but maybe he was thinking about it, or that was that came through to me in that way.
Hang on, Justin. So what Justin's talking about wasn't a podcast; it was Pascal's lecture at Breaking Convention.
That's right.
So obviously Breaking Convention in August of 2019, and it's just been put onto YouTube a couple of days ago. And obviously he's talking about, I think what you're talking about, Mike, the biggest field study of DMT entities and the contact therein. And he was putting up slides of talking about the visions that some of the participants had obviously seen. And one of the slides that he put up is what Justin had seen, is this specific symbol. Now, going back to what you were talking about control within this experiment, Justin, they were they had to be very guarded about what they would do, what the protocol is. And of course, there are, I'm guessing, behind the scenes, potentially hidden triggers that Pascal and Dave are trying to implement in that. So it's not just the telepathy, but perhaps between Justin and I, but perhaps Pascal and Dave had put a certain set of triggers in place that perhaps they were trying to impose on the situation as well. Yeah.
Shit, might have just busted that open.
Well, yeah. But I'm just guessing here. I don't know, and I'm just like, but for you to see that symbol, right, which is quite, if you're talking about these realms stretching beyond time and being outside of time and space, then something that was seen or done last year could quite come. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
It's very interesting, but yeah, I hope.
Anyway, let's stop talking about that because we might not have had to mention that.
Yeah, well, you might have to cut that bit.
I think you're fine.
How much?
I don't even know what he said that was true. So I mean, you two know because you guys did the thing, but I mean, I don't think.
Yeah, well, we knew very little. All we were told is that they would turn up. They would weigh the dose. We would sit down together. We would do the experiment, and then we would be interviewed about our fight. What happened to us during. That was it. That is it. That's all the information that we had. So what goes on and went on behind the scenes is anyone's guess.
Yeah. It was
interesting. It was interesting.
I think that there's a lot of cool experiments you could do. I mean, I even had a thought. I don't know who were we talking to. I think maybe Mike Brancatelli from Psychedelic, or maybe it was somebody else. But I was saying a cool experiment would be to extract using Mimosa hostilis, and then have somebody do that, and then have other people do acacia extraction, and see if there's archetypal differences between like the Amazon and like the Middle East area, where you might have in the Amazon you might have different, you see jaguars and rainbow serpents and stuff like that. Maybe the acacia from the Middle East might give you some sort of mystical religious experiments, and that's where the three Abrahamic religions come
or a dog-headed human.
Yeah, something.
I can kind of elaborate on that a little bit, because obviously we've only ever extracted from mimosa, and I have had, in fact, probably more often than not, Egyptian and sort of Middle Eastern entity contact, more so than anything from. Well, I've had obviously Mayan and Aztec sort of hieroglyphs, but so that's interesting.
Interesting, yeah.
One of our buddies emailed us, or a listener to the show, and said same thing about he never really studied ancient civilizations and stuff, and he did DMT and saw all this crazy Aztec, symbolism and iconography. And his thought was that maybe that's where they came up with it, was doing these substances and then creating this culture.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Well, we said that in Augustine. We've had Hindu gods and goddesses. I mean, that's kind of the construct that you can draw upon after the experience to try and put some sort of substance to what you've seen. So, and all of the religious archetypes have kind of come up in one way or another. And we've both said that.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I was just curious. I mean, you saying that makes me think that maybe there's
definitely where that comes from.
Yeah, you saying that makes me think that maybe then there's nothing to it if you're doing mimosa and you're experiencing, Egyptian stuff. So, I mean, maybe there's nothing to it. I just thought that maybe if there's something in the material plane of things that's connecting it, maybe it has to do with the actual plant that's being used. But
yeah.
I'll definitely feel like that. Does anyone know anyone who's extracted it from the acacia then?
Oh, I mean, I'm sure I see people talk about it online. I've never actually talked to somebody. I think people have. I've talked to people that have done it via acacia.
I think people do.
I think mimosa is the most prevalent, right? I mean,
it's the easiest. It's the most common, and I think it yields a higher quantity of DMT, which is why it's used more often than not, I think.
Huh.
So you guys have done a lot since we've talked. Now, why don't you talk about, we were talking a little bit off air about Graham Hancock. Why don't you guys talk a little bit about what you're maybe going to be doing with him? So.
But basically, the deal was that the interview with Graham couldn't happen at that time for one reason or another. So we said, okay, well, let's reschedule it. And then, of course, the virus situation kicked in worldwide, and that really put pay to it. But I've spoken to him recently via email, and he's very keen for us to do that interview with him. So as soon as, you know, we're allowed to move around in the UK and mix with strangers and so on and so forth, we're going to do that interview, basically. But it will be a DMT-based interview. I think Justin's got some, you know, ancient mythology stuff that he wants to throw in. And we're also actually
want to look at that stuff for definitely.
We're also going to take Rick Voot with us as well, because that's his, you know, that's his bag. So he can come at Graham from that perspective, and he's really excited to get involved. So
they're already in contact anyway, them two, aren't they?
Yeah, he was the author of the month for the book for Graham's website, which is a high honor. I mean, you know, you think about Graham Hancock, Fingerprints of the Gods, Magicians of the Gods, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, mate, he's a legend. I can't wait. He's going to be one of my favourite to interview.
Have you guys read his newest one, America Before?
No, I've not read it yet, but I've been watching all the YouTube stuff about that.
Nice.
It's a fascinating book.
Yeah, is it?
Yeah, I mean, because that's a, you know, kind of a hot topic right now too, is who were the first real America or people to land in what's now America. You know, was it, you know, it was always the Clovis first paradigm, but now that's been shattered by all this evidence, and I'm sure you guys see Graham Hancock tweeting about it. And but yeah, I mean, his books are amazing, and you know, hopefully maybe we get to interview him one time too on here. But nice. You guys, you know, get in there and do the work. You know, that'll be an interesting interview.
Oh,
we'll pave the way for you, mate. We'll pave the way for you, boys. Don't worry about that.
Beautiful.
Thanks. Put in the word. We know. You know.
For sure.
Sure, yeah.
So I want to talk now a little bit about what you guys are doing, right? Because you guys are kind of not relaunching. You guys have always still been putting stuff out, but you've been on a little hiatus with all this virus stuff going on. So what do you guys have in store going forward with your YouTube channel and what you guys are doing?
Well, I think we what we need to do is we need, and as you guys are, YouTube, is that yes, we've got a sort of a really decent subscriber count and video views per video based on the fact that we've only put a couple of videos on. We've kind of got a good, successful channel, I think, but I think it has to be more consistent. We need to become more consistent with the uploading. We need to treat it like a TV program on the TV. It needs to be on a Sunday night at 9 p.m. every week, and people need to know that that's when they're going to get that content. So that's something that we've got to work on. But yeah, I mean, I think we're both more comfortable now in front of the camera, which is making things easier with regards to doing the videos, and we're trying to sort of throw, you know, a bit more creativity at it, and in the meantime sort of mix with these big wig players in this genre, and try and sort of get as much interaction with those guys as possible, and get as many of them on the shows that we do as often as we can.
You're breaking up a little.
Get Graham,
Paul.
That kind of, and it's going to skyrocket. So, am I okay? How's that?
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah. That's a little better.
Hello. Yeah, it's. I think it's ramping it up, Mike. To be honest, we need to ramp it up and make it something that is a bit more structured, I think, for us.
So you mentioned something that I think is probably the most important thing when you're doing YouTube is the consistency thing. I think. Because it's not even just about the people that watch your stuff, which, you know, obviously we all appreciate, all of our listeners and fans and stuff, but it's like the algorithm too, you know, if you keep putting stuff out there, it'll keep bumping you up. And I mean, you guys have some high production videos, so I think that, you know, you're right. If you can keep adding 1 or 2 a week or whatever the case may be, I think you guys will be right up there. You know, with some of the top channels on the subject. But I think that it's its own beast, you know, and you got to kind of play the game.
Definitely. definitely. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I say we've been dabbling with it. We've not been consistent, which is pretty much the story of our lives, to be honest with you, in every endeavour that we undertake.
Well, it's hard when you weren't allowed to go outside, and most of your stuff's predicated on walking around in nature and.
Yeah, exactly. Although we did as well, we still did though. We just sort of a little bit more covert about it. But I think, like you say, Mike, consistency wise, we've got to nail it on a weekly basis, and then hopefully we'll start to see the numbers really go up.
Yeah, I think that it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward with all this, but you look at the way businesses operate and stuff like that, and there's probably going to be a lot more people working from home and that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So hopefully people that are doing digital stuff, whether it's YouTube channels or podcasts or videos, whatever the case may be, maybe there'll be more and more eyes, because more people will be drawn towards that side of things. But
I think the end goal, Paul, is to do a blooming Netflix movie or something like that, isn't it? A full-on documentary.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so I think if we can get the exposure with the channel and kind of get the message out there, and it really takes off, and we do get up into the high numbers of subscribers and viewers per video, then you kind of use that as a platform, as many do, to obviously reach the big guns when it comes to something like putting a documentary together, like a full-on documentary. For someone like Netflix, that would be, and get the funding to then travel to different places around the world and shoot with different people and go into the Amazon and do the ayahuasca ceremonies at the retreats and all of that sort of stuff. That would be ultimately a fantastic opportunity and the end game. If we could say we've done that, then we'd be happy bunnies, I think.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, there's obviously a big market for that kind of stuff. I think that there's ways to do it too. I think you're right. If you can get the right format and the right people, because right now there's really, I'm trying to think like credible. Hamilton's Pharmacopoeia is probably the best thing on TV in terms of all of this stuff, what's out there. But yeah, there's a market out there for sure if you can dial.
And then you've got like Mitch Schultz, who shot the DMT Spirit Molecule documentary, who's I think he's doing a DMT Spirit Molecule Part 2, which is obviously with all the up-to-date research, and he's obviously spoken to a lot of the guys that we've spoken to. So I think, there's not people falling over themselves to produce this kind of stuff, but there is a niche market for it that if we hit it at the right time, as this thing grows and becomes exponentially more popular, what with obviously mental health, the mental health aspect, I think that's driving it to a good place with the likes of MAPS and so on and so forth and King's College Hospital Imperial Hospital that are coming out with all this fantastic, evidence to support benefits of mental health through psychedelic therapies.
Yeah,
that's really driving it in a positive direction.
Yeah, you're. I'm living proof that psychedelics can help you with mental illness. So I don't know about the whole. I think that they're probably going to do a lot of research with the DMT, but right now they just passed, I think, 90% positivity with the PTSD and MDMA through MAPS that just came out.
Yeah.
My personal, experiences with macro doses of psilocybin and my OCD has been profound. Anything that can take you out of your day-to-day consciousness and help you reevaluate your thought processes and stuff like that. I don't even think it's, it's not like something you take and it just makes you better. I think that's the assumption people have with like pills too. That's not the case. You have to
put the work in.
You got to take these things and then evaluate yourself, know thyself, that kind of a thing. But it'll be interesting to see where it goes.
Like being wrenched. Yeah, it's like you say, it's that being wrenched out of your habitual daily routine, and sort of being able to view your behaviour from a different perspective and view yourself from a different perspective. It kind of puts the screwdriver in the gears of the machine and shakes everything up to reboot it. I think is kind of the premise of it. But yeah, so that from that respect, it is going in a more positive direction. And once the mainstream pick up on that and really, isn't there a report from the States? I can't think what his name is. It Michael? There's a guy who was on Rogan's podcast. He's like really
Michael Pollan. Yeah, but Michael Pollan. How to Change Your Mind is his book. While that's great, I think that that's pushing the agenda forward a little bit. It's also like, well, maybe I would have picked somebody a little bit different, but the fact that he's a journalist and like normal people are going to read that, that's a good thing. But then it's like, if you know what you're talking about, it's like, well, what are you trying to say here? So. Yeah,
I mean, I haven't read the book, to be fair, but I think like there's definitely two derivatives of this field of interest. One is that maps mental health perspective, and then the other is the consciousness, diving into the depths of consciousness to try and see what reality is made of, that sort of aspect of it as well. So two different,
So is, in terms of, are you guys going forward still going to pretty much just focus on the DMT stuff, or are you guys also going to be entertaining other psychedelics? Or
I'd definitely like to take it. I mean, like you guys have been posting about, you've been doing the ancient Greece stuff, and
we're all over the place, my man.
Yeah, and I enjoyed it. The Easter Island, all of those things. I love listening to it. But trouble is I'm at work and I've got it in my headphones, and you've got slideshows coming up as well. So, I mean, it's still interesting. So I'd like to kind of offshoot.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'd like to offshoot from where we take it now. I mean, we haven't posted any of the COVID, but we've had discussions about COVID and what our thoughts and feelings. I mean, they go up and down what we think about what's going on with that right now. But
well, we've been very conscious about that because we didn't want to get I know some of these videos are getting flagged just.
I don't even think anything we'd be saying would be that risky, but you're right. I mean, with the climate of things, and that's another thing with
you're right. I'd noticed that a lot of things just getting shut down at the moment.
And to that regard, stay tuned. Me and my buddy are working on something right now. There'll be a platform soon where you can talk about all that stuff and not worry about it.
Not get reprimanded from it.
And I think it'll be beneficial to all of us in this community as well. You guys. So.
I think with regards to what we want to do, I think we definitely need to build a website, and we need to build our clients up and start providing. I don't know what are you guys selling merch? Are you doing anything like that? I know you've got Patreon.
We have Patreon. We're going to be probably getting into the merch thing. We're working on different things. Actually, you mentioned documentary. Maurice and I are working on some stuff as well. Not necessarily about psychedelics, but consciousness related. And Maurice is obviously a photographer and videographer, but so we're looking at that. I got this thing on the I don't want to say too much, but there'll be an app out somewhat soon, to cover all of these topics, and
cool.
people will be able to sell their merch. Friends of ours will be able to kind of get in there and do their thing and interact with people. So that'll be nice. But in terms of, growing the business side of things, I look at it like more organically. Like, what is there, if somebody says, hey, do you guys have T-shirts? Well, let's consider that now, kind of a thing, where I'm not out for the business side of things. I think that as your fan bases grow, there are opportunities to give people what they want and make a few bucks as well. So, I mean, I think if you guys do you guys have a Dreaming Jaguar shirt with your logo and stuff?
Yeah, Justin just got one recently for his birthday, didn't you? From his big lady.
Max had one, mate. So the tattoo and the actual logo. He's now on a black T-shirt, and it's it looks pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a cool logo. I like that.
Paul, that's going to be in our next video, isn't it? The one down Arundel.
Yes, yeah. So we've done a video with us too. I think we're just kind of like experimenting at the moment with what we're doing on the videos and stuff, just trying to see what works and what doesn't work. But I think with the merch stuff and with all of that sort of side of thing, like you're right, Mike, it's got to be organic. but it's kind of, if you can make that side hustle, then you're able to do this on a more permanent basis, and it can become more of a structured thing, can't it? Which is probably what we need to do to give it the structure. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense.
Unfortunately, the money frees you up to put some more time into your passion, which we all would like to do.
Yeah, sure.
Exactly.
I think that when you talk about like this money side of thing, for us, the whole thing with starting the podcast was, let's put credible conversations and information out there, let people decide, for themselves. There's a lot of stupid stuff, and just, you see the articles and stuff that was like, well, who would do that? So like, I was just reading all this stuff. I'm like, well, let's put some credible stuff out there. So let's do this podcast. And then from there, it's like, you try and stay true to what's going on, but you also want to grow. So I think that the whole money making thing, look, you need followers, you need fans, you need people to invest in what you're doing. So, you can help make their experience better. But also, take care of yourself in the process. I mean, nothing's free. If you're an artist, you're not giving out free art. As you're a content creator, you're probably not giving out free content. So that's a whole, thing that, you go over in your head, and just make sure you're not like taking advantage of things, but you're also staying true to the word and that kind of stuff. So that's just the way it's like a balance thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, the financial side isn't an important thing right now. We've got other stuff going on. So
no, for sure.
Yeah.
It's about getting out there, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think too, by getting stuff out there, I think your logo's awesome. So if you get some shirts out there, I'll buy one for sure. So
awesome. Is that your dog, Justin? You in the background?
What? Just barking? Yeah. Everyone's running upstairs. Probably bath time.
So, before, I don't know, you guys have a little bit of time left, or how much time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you look at where all this is going, the research, all these experiments, and all these different things, do you think that we're going to have some sort of answers, or do you think it's just this thing where we're just doing our part to, like Sisyphus, push the boulder up the mountain kind of a thing, and just let the next guy take over?
Mike, I think the answers that we're looking for probably aren't the answers that we're going to get. So
sure,
it's like the thing about, from my perspective, it's like, are we going into another realm? Who knows? And you can't even decipher that. But does it do good elsewhere, like we've discussed?
Mm-hmm.
So those answers might not possibly give us any understanding of the paranormal or that side of thing, but it sure does help people who are about to go and find out about the paranormal, cancer patients, or the soldiers who are suffering, and all of those avenues. So I think what I'm looking for probably isn't going to be answered, but there will be some massive answers coming from off the back end of where this research is going.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think also, I mean, if you look at this extended state research that has been given the go-ahead at Imperial College, and they are obviously coming at it from a scientific perspective more so than the DMTX guys in Colorado, who are sort of going down the consciousness route. Who knows what will come from that? I mean, we were speaking to somebody recently, and one of my questions was that, the guys at Imperial College, Dr. Cartwright Harris and these Chris Timmerman, when they do their breaking convention, lectures, it's very hardline science, but they have to be hardline science to the general public and to their investors, I'm guessing, because obviously they need to get the budget, so they need to get the permission to do the work that they're doing. So it's a very hardline science. It's all about how the brain works. But surely, off the back of these experiences, they must have, I think it was Pascal that we were talking to, they must have sort of like, smoking room conversations where they sort of say to each other, is this really a fucking portal to another dimension? And you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Those kind of discussions off record. So if you've got the likes of this DMT, particularly extended state DMT research that's been commissioned, that is going to go ahead at Imperial College London, that's going to throw open all sorts of interesting situations. We've never had somebody be in the DMT breakthrough state for 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. And obviously Gallimore's, thought process on that is that he's steadfast in that it probably does stabilize in that state. You're obviously in there for 4 or 5 minutes. You don't know fucking what way's up. But the longer you stay in there, maybe things do stabilize, and then maybe this dialogue with these entities or whatever they are, or whatever it is, this collective consciousness or whatever is going on in that state, maybe it does throw open the doors to some sort of meaningful, manageable dialogue. And then God, who knows where that could go. Maybe 10, 15, 20, 30, 50 years in the future, if they're looking to do that now, then maybe that will be what proves, parallel, the multiverse, or whatever these scientific theories have been for the last sort of 10, 15 years. Who knows, really? Who knows?
Yeah, it's interesting. And what's fascinating to me is I kind of judge things based on different people's perspectives. So a lot of times when you're talking about like metaphysical things, and I hope you don't take offense to this, but it seems like a lot of British or English people are very pragmatic. They do not like to go out on a limb. There are UFO people in Britain that do good, research and look into all that kind of stuff. And we've talked to different people, but it seems like British people are very pragmatic. So when you have this many British people saying that there's something crazy going on here, as opposed to let me put it into perspective. So I just feel like American people are more open to crazier metaphysical, mystical ideas. And it seems like British people are a little bit more reserved in that regard. And even if you even in regards to like religion and stuff like that as well, do you guys feel like that's part of your culture growing up, or do you feel like, and this is just my senses too, I don't even know if this is a thing, this is just the feeling that I've gotten from watching documentaries and listening to people talk and that kind of a thing. I feel like English people are a little bit more reserved when it comes to talking about these metaphysical concepts. So do you think that there's something ingrained in your culture, or what do you think's going on there?
Mm-hmm.
Justin?
I agree with you. We're definitely reserved.
Agree. Yeah, I agree.
But it's not something that people don't talk about. It's just generally you'll talk to someone and briefly get onto the subject with someone you would never have thought would have been into psychedelics or the metaphysical, paranormal, any of that stuff, and then all of a sudden just takes that little bit to break open and get to know someone that way, I think. But like you said, yeah, we are reserved. English people, British people generally don't discuss it in that way. I think it's
I think it's a fear of ridicule, isn't it, amongst your peers?
Fear of ridicule.
That's what it is.
Yeah,
and British people definitely hold their cards more close to their chest when it comes to talking about outlandish topics. 100%. Mm-hmm. Where that comes from, I don't know. Maybe possibly something, maybe from the wrath of the church, maybe many moons ago. It's kind of the witchcraft sort of aspect of our history, whereas you would be killed if you were seen to be, a heretic or whatever. Maybe it's that arm of the church that kind of has driven it underground a little bit, and it still probably is a little bit underground. But like Justin said, I've come across people recently, parents at my kids' school that have happened to see the Jaguars YouTube channel, and they are people that are business owners that you would just never in a million years think that they've got any sort of interest in this kind of line of thinking, and then they really want to get into the conversation and they're really fascinated about it. And it's like, so yeah, it's a kind of underbelly subculture sort of topic that actually probably a lot of people do think about. They just don't talk about it until they meet someone that they can talk about it with, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. And I think that like I mentioned, it was just something that I've noticed because, you've got you guys, you've got Dick Kahn, you've got, Aaron Voot, you've got all these people making, and all the researchers you just mentioned from like Imperial College and all these people writing all these books and stuff like that. Part of what you mentioned, I did get the sense of, it's almost like the way I think about it's like this. You almost over there, you guys probably look, and not, I'm not talking about you specifically, but as a collective, as America is like your little brother or something like that. And that if your little brother sees something crazy, like right now we've got all this crazy UFO stuff going on. I don't know if you guys are paying attention to that at all. But our Pentagon acknowledges that there's stuff in the sky that they don't know what it is. We have videos of them from our most, forward-looking infrared systems that exist. That we know of, and there's these objects. So, you have immediately in America, you have a lot of people believing, UFOs are real, and then you have a small portion saying, it could be our secret technology. You've got another little portion saying that, maybe it's another country. So you've got all these different little factions, but a lot of the people are kind of coming together like, this is a real phenomenon. And when you talk to people over in Britain on the subject, there are researchers, there are people doing the thing, but it just seems like it's not as big of a deal. So if there was weird things in the sky in Britain, I think that it would be reversed. But in the sense, like I said, I just feel like British people kind of look at America as almost like their little brothers, and maybe that's part of the psychology of it too. Is like, we don't want to believe what these crazy people over here are thinking, kind of a thing. And I don't mean it like disparagingly either. I just mean like in terms of psychologically.
Yeah, I think there is a quite a big UFO community over here. I mean, but I think it's like say, I think it's still that it's still the subculture thing. But I think we have heard about it. It's the Tic Tacs, isn't it? It's the infrared. The Pentagon released the videos of the fighter jets with the it was on the news. It was on the news.
They were released a few years ago, but then the Pentagon just came out and said they're real. We don't know what they are.
Yes.
That kind
of thing. Or maybe, Mike, just throw a little conspiracy in there.
Ooh.
Is that the prelim to this fake alien invasion that's meant to take place?
The old Werner von Braun on his deathbed. The last great threat is
crazy, man.
From space, kind of a thing.
It'd be a good time for it too, right?
Well,
now.
For sure, mate, for sure. Yeah, it's interesting.
So watch
times.
out.
What about you guys? Have you guys ever seen anything alien in nature, UFO in nature? I know Dick Collins seen quite a few things when we talked to him recently.
Yeah, I've seen a UFO, definitely, and I was in Ibiza on holiday with my mates. I was only 18, 20, and coincidentally, a friend of mine who was working in Ibiza happened to be staying at the same apartment block that we were staying at. So it was the first day we were there. It was about 6 o'clock in the evening, and there was a bit of we were getting our bags out and so on and so forth, getting all of our clothes out, ready to start our holiday. And there was banging on doors and so on and so forth. And anyway, this lad that I knew from my local town come banging on our door, and he said, "Look out the back! Look out the back!" So we all went out onto the balcony, and it was kind of wasteland. Maybe a square mile of sort of Spanish wasteland out the back of the apartment blocks in one of Ibiza's towns. And it's hard to judge, but probably maybe a mile away and maybe 400 or 500 feet in the air, there were two red lights just sat there. No cloud cover at all. Just these two red lights that looked like it could be a plane coming in, if that makes that sort of distance of the headlights of a plane. But obviously there was no noise, no planes, and we watched this thing for about 45 minutes. It was just two red lights sat in the sky, and there were people on all of the roofs, of the apartment blocks. So out in the distance, we're looking at this thing, and these guys are underneath it, looking up at it, pointing up at it. So it was definitely there. Whatever it was there. It didn't make any noise. It was there for about 45 minutes, and then it literally just winked out over the course of a few minutes, just winked out and disappeared. And I wasn't on drugs at the time, so it was definitely there.
Unusually.
I was going to say the one time you weren't.
Yeah, no, it was. When we talk about it now, that's probably the only thing that I've actually seen that I can say, who knows what that was.
Yeah, that's interesting.
What about in the psychedelic state though?
What alien in nature?
Well, okay, because like I said, we had Dick Conn on. He's mentioned he's sitting in his garden. He just hit a few off the old DMT pipe, and he looks up and he's seen saucers and portals and different, the entity. Some people that encounter the entities encounter them as gray aliens or aliens alien in nature.
I think that's something Paul and I need to explore, to like using it because usually we're in a space where it's safe, it's comfortable. What I mean?
And also we go into
that
the
outside
DMT
stuff, Paul, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, I think what Dick does as well, and we've spoken to Dick, in depth. He does a lot of different experiments with his DMT experiments. Like he'll do very small doses, doesn't it? He'll do very, very, very tiny doses, going right the way through to the breakthrough dose, and he'll do it in different environments with his eyes open, with his eyes closed, sat ups, laying down. Whereas Justin and I kind of have always gone for the full breakthrough, eyes closed, comfortable space, lay back, eyes closed, full immersion, sort of take away the sensory, your external sensory perceptions and go inward into the space. So we've always done it like that. So alien in nature, the whole thing's alien in nature, whether or not it's kind of a space alien thing. Oh, well, I've had one experience, that experience with the like a starship type thing.
I've only had the species, the Native American species type aliens, but haven't done it still to this day. Don't know what they were talking
I don't
about.
think, and when I say that, I don't mean like alien. You're seeing aliens from space. I guess that maybe more like an interdimensional, like kind of what we were talking about before, where there's these entities. They're probably interdimensional. Well, look, let's just be realistic here. There's two possibilities. Either these things are external. I mean, there's probably more than two, but just for the sake of conversation, there's two possibilities. Either these are manifestations from our own cognitive, or let's just say our subconscious. Let's just say that these entities are part of our subconscious. That's one option. The other option would be these are external entities, and when we get into these states, we maybe see we have different pattern recognition via our vision or our perceptions, that kind of a thing. So when you look at that, these beings would either be interdimensional or they would be manifestations from within. Now, do you think that you said you had an experience with an entity, Native American entity? Did it feel like it was alien in nature? I mean, obviously the whole thing probably feels alien, but did it feel like it was its own separate thing, or did you feel like it was all part of this one thing?
Yeah, there are definitely levels to that as well. So there are entities that feel like they are part of a show, if that makes sense, and that perhaps that side of it could be from an internal perspective, that your visionary part of your brain is completely smashed to pieces during this experience, and you are trying to create something that's familiar to you to a certain extent. So there are entities within the background environment that are somewhat animated, but whether or not they are their own thing or not is one thing. It is either they are or they aren't. But then I have also had full on freestanding in front of my visual field, projecting information, talking, trying to get my attention, and you kind of move to take on a different perspective, and they draw you back round. They are one, in my opinion, 100%. It's either a part of my brain and my consciousness that I don't understand, right, or it's something else that is external, that is there and within that environment to get your attention and as a freestanding intelligence, if that makes sense. Definitely 100%, and more often than not, but I do get a lot of this sort of entity stuff where it's part of the background noise, and you kind of dancing creatures or whatever they are within that environment. But yeah, the further you go in, the more they come out of the woodwork to be freestanding intelligence, god-like creatures.
And Justin, so you don't really have the same kind of experiences with the entities you mentioned earlier?
I don't generally. there's been a few occasions where I've had full on, right, I can identify that is a Native American, however it changed into an alien, or they did, that was in one of them, or, you know, I've had the it clown, that definitely stood out as the it clown, but most of my information, and I suppose it's more that they are definitely part of their own thing. You know, I don't feel that I could construct a lot of the things that I see in my brain. I possibly could. Who knows? You know, it's very clever thing. But yeah, I suppose for me, so they're definitely outside of me. I will go that far. They're definitely not my construct. I'm not making that stuff up. I don't believe I am in my brain. And but I generally don't. The conversation is more empathic. It's more telepathic when it comes across to you.
Yeah, no, same to me. It's telepathic. It's always telepathic. No words are ever spoken. You know, they're not talking to you, but it's like an emotional. They're pushing emotion on you, and you kind of know what or you're trying to understand what they want you to understand through emotion, and you get snippets of their motives, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Which is where the extended state comes in, obviously, because we'll get more
exactly
functionality
that.
when you're in there.
Yeah. Does it stabilise, and does it become easier to converse with these beings the longer you're in there? Obviously,
I think that's an important experiment when they can get into that, because I think that being able to interact with these things, maybe it's just not long enough where you can develop that connection, or maybe, you know, I think that it could go a few different ways. One of them would be that the entities maybe would leave at some point, you know, within that time. They could interact more and give you more information, maybe develop some sort of line of communication that's not of this realm. Or the other possibility would be maybe you find out it is you. Maybe by talking to these things you find out, oh, this is part of who I am. I don't know what that could still have metaphysical implications too, but that just means that you know, you're in contact with some unknown part of yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, these are all fascinating conversations, and I think that hopefully with some of this research and experiments, and like the experiment that you guys have done and all this stuff, maybe we'll get some answers, or at least get the ball rolling a little bit further down the hill, and you know, figure out what's going on there.
Yeah, it's interesting times for sure.
Oh yeah.
So
that'll be cool.
Yeah, so let's wrap it up here. Is there anything you guys want to plug other than your YouTube channel? I'll have the link for your YouTube channel down below.
No, not really. I think we will have a website soon. I think that's the next thing we need to put together. We can do that. I've had a new website for my filming company put together recently, which didn't take very long. So maybe within the next month or so, we'll have a website, and we're just going to keep whacking these videos out and become more consistent, as we talked about earlier, and try and get it out on a weekly basis, and try and grow the fan base, and see if we can get some interesting conversation going with the people that are watching the videos.
Yeah,
for sure.
Nice.
And interview the rest of the big guns.
Yeah, and then look, you guys, I mean, making high quality stuff with high quality guests, I mean, I think that's obviously the right path. You know, it's just
it's hard to beat the algorithm.
Like anything else, though, it just takes time, and you know,
if
somebody's got 1,000 videos of similar nature, you know, that's just more work for all of us to get to that point. You know, so
yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so check out their YouTube channel, subscribe. Anybody listening to this on our channel, if you like psychedelics, you'll love their channel. Go subscribe. Go check it out if you haven't already. Dr. Strassman emailed me his new Audible is out. Joseph Levy Escapes Death. So go check that out. Go get that Audible. It's semi-autobiographical about his life. And as I mentioned, I built a new website for us. It's mindescapepodcast.com, and you can also go through the old URL. It'll direct you there, and also I updated our Patreon too, so it's patreon.com/mindescapepodcast. For $2 a month you'll get exclusive content. I've got some stuff with Peter Sherstead Hughes, or Peter Sherstead H, and Dick Kahn. We've got a few things up there of recent, so check that out. And that's it. We really appreciate you guys coming on, and hopefully we get you on sooner than later, and we can talk about the findings from the experiment you guys did.
Yeah, that'd be good, man. That'd be good.
Yeah,
I think they
definitely.
were saying about a month's time that's going to be put together. So hopefully, in a few months' time, we can come on and talk about it.
Yeah. As soon as you guys know what's up, just let us know. Obviously, we're always free and down to have these interesting conversations, especially with you guys. And I'm glad we got this in, and you guys stay safe out there, and look forward to your videos coming up. I saw you guys filming, so looks like it's going to be some good ones.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, buddy.
Lovely.
Beautiful.
Thanks.
Cheers, Maurice.
Have a good one, guys.
Peace.
See you later, guys.